Happy St. Patrick's Day, and welcome to the Points Per Podcast. My name's Eric. That's my co-host, Will. And today we're going to be mock drafting. We're doing a Dynasty rookie mock for 2026 with landing spots, which I'm really excited about. It's something that we haven't done so far this offseason, but I think now's a really good time considering we're post-combine, post this initial wave of free agency. So I think we're in a really good spot to kind of understand the team needs around the NFL and what these teams are going to be targeting as we head into draft season. So I'm excited to get into this one. How you feeling about it, Will?
Hey man, I'm feeling lucky today, man. Glad to be here. Glad to be making this mock draft for everybody. I don't feel too lucky about this draft class, but
Yeah,
glad to be here and glad to be able to talk about it with you all.
absolutely. So let's get Sleeper up on the screen where we will be hosting this mock draft. Just as a little bit of context for you guys, this is going to be from the lens of a 12-team Superflex half-point tight end premium draft, just to give a little bit of a bump up to that tight end position so we can include a few more of them in this draft. Um, we're only going to be doing 2 rounds. We don't want to go too much further past that until a little bit later in the off season. But I think we have it sorted. Will, you ready to do the honors with the 101 overall?
Yeah, man, I got the easiest pick of the draft so far. I have Jeremiah Love at the 101. In PFF, they actually had his landing spot at the Tennessee Titans. They had him trading up with the Jets to the second overall pick, I believe. But when it comes to that one, it's Jeremiah Love, guys. It's just an easy pick. He's a generational running back. He impressed us a lot at the combine as well. And while he's not as great as like past prospects we've seen like Saquon Barkley and the likes of such, he is still going to be a great prospect in the league. And going to a team that's up and coming like the Tennessee Titans, I think this guy could be the limit for him.
Yeah, I don't even have much to add. He's been the 101 for the longest time. I don't think we need to waste too much time on it, but I like it. At the 102, we get into this territory of the wide receivers, and I guess you could argue for the first quarterback, but I'm going to start with the wide receivers, and I'm going to go with Mekhi Lemon. Um, Somebody that early on in the process I had as my wide receiver one, kind of wavered a little bit. We were talking about Carnell Tate as the wide receiver one, and I think there's absolutely still some discussion to be had there. But just as we've gotten further into the process, I've really cemented Lemon as my guy. In terms of a little bit of context here, like first round receivers that have a career yards per route run over 3 dating back to 2019, Hollywood Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, JSN, and Mekhi Lemon. Like it's a really good group to be in. And he's the only one in this class that's going to be drafted in the first round that has that level of yards per route run. So I feel really confident in this one. And he ends up actually going, should have mentioned that first, to the Commanders at 107 in this PFF mock. And so I think that's a really great landing spot and an opportunity there for him to become the wide receiver one relatively quickly. Like I know we have Terry, but I think that he's starting to age out a little bit. And I think they can complement each other pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick there. Obviously, like last year, Terry really did struggle with injuries a lot as well. That's another thing that comes with age, but he really struggled with it a lot last season. And going into this season with the new offensive coordinator, Dave Blau, I'd assume they want to air out a little bit more, try to get the passing game going a little bit more. And Mekhi Lemon be a great addition, especially in the slot. That's a place that they're really lacking right now.
100%. So where are you going to go at 103?
At the 103, I'm gonna pick a quarterback here. I'm going for Fernando Mendoza. I think this is it's super flex, so obviously quarterbacks are going to be valued a little bit higher here. It's an opportunity to get in on a quarterback that's going into a fresh system over there in Las Vegas. We have no idea what it's going to look like over there. But in terms of Fernando Mendoza, he impressed everybody this year, kind of came out of nowhere, really. But he was able to put it all together, put together a really good campaign. We saw at the combine, he weighed in and he actually ended up weighing a little bit heavier than we thought. So he is taking those extra steps to be, ready for the NFL. But also when it just comes to just fantasy itself, I think quarterbacks should be valued around here.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fair, especially in Superflex. We've talked about this in previous videos where we don't necessarily see like the highest fantasy ceiling with Mendoza. But I've been wrong about that with quarterbacks before. Guys that don't seem to have the highest upside can be pretty fantasy relevant. And he also finds himself, on a bad team, but I think trending upwards in a good trajectory, especially with Clint Kubiak at the helm and some of the offensive weapons they have there. So I like this pick, and he definitely deserves to be in consideration somewhere probably between the 102 and 105.
Absolutely.
All right. So at the 104, I will continue at the wide receiver position. We'll go with Carnell Tate. who I
Hmm.
mentioned in my spiel with Makai Lemon. He ends up getting drafted at the 108, eighth overall pick by the Saints, which I think is a little bit interesting. Somebody that I had as an early comp for him, not a perfect comp, but relatively similar to Chris Olave, who, if he ends up here, will be his teammate. I think it'll be great for the offense in general. I think it'll be great for Tyler Shuck, and I love the pace that this team plays with. And so I think there could be fantasy relevance for Carnell Tate there for sure. But obviously, with Olave there, it does limit the upside just a little bit. So I'm curious your take with him going this early.
So I had him right around in the same area. I probably would swap him just one spot a little bit lower, but again, we're talking a little ticky tack in that area. But like you said, it's an offense that's trending upward. Tyler Shuck last year really impressed me a lot. I thought he was going to be kind of bad, and he ended up being pretty good add to the Saints. And when
Yeah,
it comes to just that offense itself, it was rolling a lot better than we thought it would be as well. And Carnell Tate is not going to make that any worse. He's definitely going to make that situation better. He pairs well with Chris Olave. I just think it's a match made in heaven right there.
100%.
Now, when we're looking at the next pick, this is who I probably would have put at the 104, but again, that's only after today's news. I'm going with Jordan Tyson. Just because earlier today, Jalen Waddle was traded to the Denver Broncos, which is really going to just clear out a lot of lane for Jordan Tyson. Now, Mike Washington is still there, and I think he's probably going to be the primary option out there. But again, this is a team that just signed Malik Willis. They just got rid of their last head coach. I said Mike Washington, didn't I?
Yeah, sorry, I was a little confused
Malik
because
Malik Washington.
we
My
do have
my
a Mike
apologies.
Washington in this draft class, but I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
that's
Yeah,
on me. Malik Washington is still there, and he's the primary target in that offense. But to be able to add a Jordan Tyson to complement that and have a Malik Willis who you're trying to, I guess, have be your quarterback of the future and just build a new culture out there, having that as your initial duo, I don't think that's a bad start at all.
no, and I think you have every reason to want him at the 104 with that level of opportunity that he would be stepping into. You mentioned Malik Washington. I think maybe you're even a little too complimentary of him. I think Tyson supplants him immediately.
Absolutely.
Um, which, yeah, I'm sure you feel the same way. But yeah, after the Jalen Waddle trade, I think Tyson might find himself in a similar situation to like rookie year Garrett Wilson on the Jets. I think Garrett Wilson was a better prospect, and we saw him have success, but he wasn't a very consistent fantasy option in year one. And just based on kind of the trajectory and timeline of this Dolphins team, I do have some concerns. One, whether you believe or not in Malik Willis as the long term option, the fact that they're clearly tearing this thing down. So the team's going to be bad for at least the next probably 2 years. And then the fact that, 2027 comes around and they might draft another quarterback, which I guess could be helpful if Malik Willis isn't the guy for Tyson. But these are things further down the road. We'll have to see what that means for his upside then, but he does have a lot of opportunity to step into now. So I like that pick there for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Now I think it's going to be tight end time. I think Kenyon Sadiq probably deserves to be here at the 106. He ends up getting drafted in this PFF mock at the 23rd overall pick to the Philadelphia Eagles, which is a little weird. It would have been great if the rumors had been true that Dallas Goedert was not going to return to the team. But he did get brought back on a 1-year deal. It's not the end of the world necessarily for Sadiq if he were to land there. It's not um, a long-term contract. And also, there's the possibility that AJ Brown still gets traded, and so there could be an opportunity there for more targets. But I would be interested to hear your thoughts on like what his role could be in year one and whether it's worth it. We give tight ends time to develop, so I think it's probably worth it regardless, even if he doesn't have that immediate production.
Yeah, I think it's a situation where even if he isn't someone who is has tremendous production in his rookie year, I think he's someone to look forward to in the future for that offense because, like you said, AJ Brown, at this point, I think the general consensus is his days are numbered. And even looking at like Dallas Goedert, they're kind of trailing him along, but at some point he's going to be out of the way as well.
Yeah,
So when it comes to that and just being at the opportunity to play with Jalen Hurts, Saquon while he's still there with the team, Devonta Smith, I think there is still plenty of weapons there for that offense to be high powered, even if they do lose those two weapons. You know what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And if we are taking a look at the next pick, we're going back to the wide receivers, and I'm going with Denzel Boston here.
Okay.
because in this mock he went to the Patriots. I thought this was kind of cool because I feel like the one thing the Patriots are really, really missing right now is a true X wide receiver. And Denzel Boston would have that opportunity 100%. He kind of had that play style back in college, but when it comes to everybody who's currently there, his competition right now is Romeo Dobbs and Keyshawn Butte. So
Yeah.
when we're looking at that as your main competition, he's got plenty of opportunity to grow into a role where he could be that primary receiver for Drake May out there.
Yeah, I think that those are all good points, and I had him in the first round as well for those reasons. I'm just not a big Denzel Boston fan, so I didn't have him quite as high. But I could be absolutely wrong. Like for me, the opportunity is there. The unique skill set compared to the wide receiver room that he would be walking into is there. Um, I just think like his ceiling is kind of like Alec Pierce. If he reaches that, great. Then I think he could be in for a fantasy viable role. But his median comp is more like a Gabe Davis to me. His floor is like Denzel Mims. Like I'm scared of Denzel Boston a little bit. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It is, I do see that, and I do understand that 100%. It's just, I feel like I'm a little bit more confident in him sort of securing that role and actually having some production versus some of the guys we're going to be talking about later in this draft as well.
That's perfectly fair. I think once we get past really the middle of the first round in this 2026 class, things start to get dicey pretty quick.
Yeah. But I think that there is opportunity. Drake May, obviously, he fell apart during the playoffs for sure. So a lot of people are kind of off the Drake May train. But I still think there's a lot of meat left on the bones out there in
Oh yeah,
New England that they left behind that last year they really couldn't capitalize on because they didn't really have the guy. I know
yeah.
some people out there Stephon Diggs fans, but that was the ghost of Stephon Diggs last year, not the one we're really used to.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunity, and so I'd be very intrigued to see what Boston can do there. But let's move on to the 108. I'm actually going to go back to the tight end. I'm going to bring up Eli Stowers here out of Vanderbilt. He gets drafted much later, and so maybe this is controversial. He went at the 30th pick in the second round, but he went to the Denver Broncos, which I think is a great landing spot. It does get a little bit more crowded with today's news that Jalen Waddle ends up there. But they have shown a propensity to want to use the tight end, especially in Sean Payton offenses. And they just haven't really had that go-to guy at that position. Evan Ingram never really filled the role the way that I think Sean Payton envisioned. And I'm a big Stowers fan. I view him very similarly to the way that I view Sadiq, actually. Sadiq obviously being an early declare, a 3-year guy, that's really impressive. Whereas Stowers, I think, is a 5th-year prospect technically, but he also played quarterback for the first 3 years of his
Hmm.
college career. So he's still just kind of getting started as a tight end, and he was also more productive than Sadiq in his 2 years at Vanderbilt. So I'm pretty high on Stowers, and I think that this would be a great fit.
I actually love this pick because I actually had him in the same spot. No joke.
Love it,
Like literally no joke. I think
love it.
that, with given the news, I know Adam Troutman just recently re-signed. He's a blocking tight end. Evan Ingram didn't really pan out a whole lot with the team, but you could tell they really wanted to get him involved. But
Yeah,
again, someone dealing a lot with injuries. I think Eli Stowers kind of brings that sort of a gentle balance between the two. He's a better blocker probably walking in than Evan Ingram was at the start of his career versus, Adam Troutman's going to be the better blocker, but he's a much better and athletic tight end in terms of receiving. So, in terms of opportunity, it may not be exactly there early on. I think Sean Payton may be a little stubborn, but if he were to hand this guy the keys early, he has all the tools he needs to be on the field all the time. And that's something that you want to see in a young tight end prospect.
absolutely. All right, what do you got for us at the 109?
At the 109, this is where things start to get a little gross, guys, I will admit, but I have Omar Cooper Jr. at the 109. And
Absolutely.
that's so it's tough talking about the Browns because there's so many weird situations going on over there in Cleveland. Like Deshaun Watson may or may not be the starting quarterback this year.
Yeah.
It could be Shadur as well. Neither of them really invoke a whole lot of confidence in me going forward, but also there's just so much real estate at the wide receiver position that it's crazy. He has to have opportunity here. In my opinion, his biggest competition out there is Isaiah Bond in terms of coming into his second year with the actual NFL offseason. I feel like that's his biggest competition. And even then, I don't really feel like that's a ton of competition. I think there's a lot of room for Omar Cooper Jr. to grow into a role, alongside like Harold Fannin out there, who's probably going to be a higher target earner as well. But what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I had him in the same spot. So I completely agree with where we're taking him in the draft. Judy's still there, right?
Man, I don't really like Jerry Judy, to be honest with you,
I don't either, but I
but
I
he
do
is
think he
there.
poses a little
He is
bit more of a
there.
threat than Isaiah Bond maybe, but that's besides the point. I think that the runway is there. I think the overarching point you're making is true. And I like Omar Cooper Jr. We talked off air about this, that like in any other draft class, this would be a guy that we'd be excited to take in the early part of the second. But in this draft class, it's like unfortunate that we have to take him all the way up here at the 109. Um, like even comparing it to just last year, like we got Luther Burden in the beginning of the second round last year, and I liked him way more than I like Omar Cooper, and I like Omar Cooper like genuinely. But the fact that we have to take him this high is just a little bit unfortunate. um, but yeah, I do think there's opportunity, and we'll see how that quarterback situation shakes out. There's actually a quarterback that gets mocked to the Browns later on in this draft that I'm potentially going to bring up later. So I'm curious if
Oh
you're
boy.
interested in that.
Oh boy. Here we go.
But let's keep it going. We'll go to the 110. Um, again, this is going to be a common refrain from us, but it's not going to get any easier from here on out. I don't love making these selections, but Jadarian Price is probably going to be the guy that I go with at the 110. He goes in the mid second round at the 17th overall pick of the second round to the Minnesota Vikings. Again, a situation where he might not be the most productive year one because they just brought Aaron Jones back on a 1 year deal. They still have Jordan Mason. But I think, 1 year to kind of be the change of pace guy and learn from Aaron Jones, and then potentially grow into that role in year two in what I expect to still be a good offense. And if Kyler can boost it even close to back to where they were under Darnold or Cousins, then a potentially great offense under KOC. I'd be happy to have a running back in that situation.
Yeah, and especially at the price that they took him at in this mock, it was like the 17th pick of the second round. So
Hmm.
like in terms of that, like unless you're Caleb Johnson, you're probably going to get a lot of run early as well. I feel like because that's a big investment to making a running back to really have him sit for a whole year too.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't think he would just like ride the bench the whole time. I think he
Yeah,
would be involved, but yeah, the names in front of him are no slouches, so
absolutely.
we wouldn't have high expectations that first year. All right, 111. Where are you taking us?
I'm taking us over to Carolina. I'm taking Jeremy Bernard.
Okay.
Because I think he's an interesting prospect solely because right now with the Panthers situation, obviously Tedero McMillan is the number one wide receiver over there. He's the alpha. But the thing that really interests me with Jeremy Bernard is that they got rid of Rico Dowdle in this offseason. If they were to pick up somebody like Jeremy Bernard, it's already been talked about how good he is in the open space, how much you can really move him around on the field and kind of plug and play him anywhere. I kind of see like Debo Samuel Light, or at least somebody that you can use just about anywhere on the field. And I see that being a big help for Bryce Young as well. Somebody that he can kind of rely on, someone who can learn multiple different facets of that offense that can also help him out and help open things up as well.
Yeah, I like your rationale. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty significantly higher than where I had him. I'm not a huge Jeremy Bernard guy in a vacuum, but I could see that role being a valuable one there in Carolina. It's also not just Tet; like they also brought back Jalen Coker, I believe.
Oh yeah, that's true. Jalen Cook. I always forget because he came on so early, late in the season last year. He was hurt.
And there was questions about whether or not he was even going to be re-signed. But I do think they brought him back, and so the runway isn't super open, but his skill set is a lot different than either of those two guys. And so if they were to air it out a little bit more and give Bryce Young a little bit more leash in that regard than they have in previous seasons, I could see that being a worthy pick. But I did have him just a little bit later on in the second round.
Got you.
I am a little bit surprised considering maybe this isn't like your guy, but I thought you would have gone with Casey Concepcion,
He's who
which
I
is who
had
I'm
at the
going to take
next pick.
here.
He's literally
Yeah.
the next spot for me.
Um, he goes as the first pick in the second round to the Jets. We don't like the Jets situation. We don't like the coaching staff. Geno Smith, I guess. We'll talk about somebody that they draft a little bit later on, but Geno Smith will be the presumed starter for week 1 for this team. And I think he could get Casey Concepcion involved. He would be behind Garrett Wilson. So again, he wouldn't be the number 1 target there right away. I think there's also some concerns to be had with Casey Concepcion. I know he's been getting pumped up by the media, and I think he deserves it to a certain extent, but he's also a relatively concerningly low ADOT and low first downs per route run player, which is typically kind of a red flag for things that I want to avoid from my wide receiver prospects. Maybe a sign of gadgety usage, but we also saw that change a little bit once he went to Texas A&M from NC State. And so I'm hopeful that what we saw from him in that last year is more indicative of what we see from him going forward.
Yeah, like you said, the real knock is just the Jets. Sorry to all Jets fans out there, but it's just a crazy situation out there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. You want to kick off the second round for us?
Yeah, second round's pretty easy. I'm going with Ty Simpson over here, also to the Jets, who we just finished talking about. They got mocked. He got mocked to the Jets in this one at the 3rd pick of the second round. So pretty good draft capital for a quarterback. But it's just like we said, we don't know what Geno Smith is at this point, whether he was a product of, just incompetence over in Las Vegas, or if he can have a sort of resurgence here, or if he's truly washed. We really don't know. But if the answer is he's washed, Ty Simpson's going to see the field a lot sooner. I mean, they only traded, a 7th round pick for Geno Smith?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, or a 6th round pick, because it was Geno in the 7th for a 6th round pick.
That's right. It was a late round pick swap, yeah.
So it's not like they're super invested in having Geno Smith at the quarterback position, and they obviously want to try to move more towards the future if they can. Ty Simpson at this role, I think he's someone who, at the very least, if Geno, he's going to end up seeing the field probably at some point this year if you were to get him drafted to the Jets. That's just being honest.
Yeah, I mean, at least there's a veteran presence there for him to bounce questions off of and try to learn from at least a little bit, whether or not he starts early on. I'm not the biggest Ty Simpson fan. I don't know that you are either, but I've kind of learned my lesson. Just in years past, I've passed on the likes of Tyler Shuck and Bo Nix and guys like that find themselves in this kind of draft range. Even though they're not my favorite prospects necessarily, there's always that opportunity for them to turn into something better than we expected. And at the quarterback position in Superflex leagues, that becomes really valuable. And if he turns into anything, or even if there's just a window of value for him that you can sell him at higher than this 201 capital, then that's worth it, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that this is a great spot to snag him here.
I was about to say, especially if you get some capital into some future drafts, like these next few years are going to be good. So like if you can get him and swap him out, even if it was another 2nd round pick for him, I'm cool with that going into future drafts.
100%. So I like this a lot. At the 202, I am going to take Chris Brazzell II out of Tennessee. He gets drafted to the Rams at the end of the 2nd round. Just give me Rams weapons, right? Like everything in this offense turns to gold. I also kind of like Chris. I think that he's a pretty good prospect. I think he's in a similar mold to like a poor man's BTJ. I think he can be that kind of big, athletic, rangy field stretcher. And that's something that I think the offense is kind of lacking currently. Obviously he's not going to contend with the likes of Puka or probably even some of their tight ends for like priority targets. But I think he does provide a dimension to this offense that they might not currently have. And if he's as good as I think he could be, he could develop into something more. And so if he can stay in that offense, I'd be more than happy to have him.
I 100% agree. I had him in a similar spot just because at this point, when we're talking about names like these and situations such as these, you just got to really trust and buy into the system. And like you said, the Ram system is one of the best ones you can buy into.
100%. All right. 203.
Now, if we're talking about systems and we're talking about opportunity, I'm going to do it. I'm going with Elijah Surratt at this spot because he got mocked to the Chiefs here. And I know the Chiefs have been a weird story these last few years, and hopefully this is the year that they really do start to pick it up. I don't think because of Eric Bieniemy, but I think that, when you got guys like this where they have so much opportunity, like really it's just Rashee Rice and then Travis Kelce and who else can we really name?
Xavier Worthy
and K9 in the backfield. I'm not going to say he's a complete zero.
And I think Rashee Rice is also kind of a question mark right now. We'll see if he gets suspended or what his status is going to be with the NFL.
Because if that's a situation where he gets suspended, I think Elijah Surratt kind of not exactly steps into that role, but he has a skill set that would at least be able to hold over that role for a little bit. They won't be as dependent on an Xavier Worthy to be every down. You're our medium to short range guy. We got to get you the ball and feed it to you. He can really thrive within his own role that he's actually supposed to be in that offense. And even with
Yeah, no,
Elijah Surratt there alongside Rashee Rice, I think that could open up some very interesting 3-man sets as well.
yeah, I agree. I think this is a unique skill set for this team. I think that he can be complementary regardless of if everybody is available there. I really liked Surratt early on in the process. He's somebody that I haven't soured on. I still like him, but my expectations have gotten a little bit lower the further we've gone on in the process. But yeah, I think that he walks into a great situation and can find himself a fantasy relevant role there.
Absolutely.
Um, Things are getting even grosser as we go to the 204. I think I'm just going to do it and take Jonah Coleman, even though the situation is a weird one. I think Jonah Coleman's just really good. I'm pretty high on Jonah. He ends up getting drafted by the Jaguars in the middle of the 3rd round in this mock, which is kind of bittersweet. I want it to be Tootin' time. And I'm not even necessarily saying that it wouldn't still be Tootin' time, even if Jonah Coleman gets drafted by the team in the 3rd round. It could still be. But I also just kind of want to have as many Liam Cohen running backs on my roster as I can because I know how good that system is and I know how fantasy relevant they can be with whoever the hot hand is at the time. And so if I have a talented young guy in that situation, I think I'm just going to make that dart throw, considering the other options that we have here in the middle of the second.
Yeah, I mean, I would also consider him a good piece of a good offense. And if he is that 1-2 punch, I think he would be more of the goal line back in that situation too. So I think there is value to be found in a Jonah Coleman for sure in that spot.
I like it.
But moving on to the next spot, this is getting just weirder and weirder, bro.
Yeah.
I'm going with Chris Bell here, just off of draft capital and sort of situation as well. But in this mock, he got drafted at the 15th overall, not 15th overall, 15th pick of the 2nd round to the Colts. In terms of the real estate, they brought back Alec Pierce. They still have Josh Downs. He would just be the 3rd receiver in this offense, at least immediately. But I mean, there is still room and still a lot of value to be found in that. If this offense were to run as smoothly as it did last year, that's really the biggest question is Daniel Jones going to be able to run this offense to the same level as the Colts were early on last season? And that's also part of the reason why he's here in the middle of the 2nd round, because we don't know. We have no idea if he's going to be able to sustain that level of play, how he's going to come back, or if last year was even indicative of what the rest of Daniel Jones's career is going to look like. It could have been a flash in the pan for all we know.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I'm trying to be optimistic and at least hope that they can reach somewhat of the same heights. And I think that especially if there's any type of, and we don't pray for this, but if there's any type of injury concerns, he would probably be the number 2 guy in this offense.
Yeah. I had him in the same range. It's not one.
Number 3, Tyler Warren's still there also. I got to remember that.
Very true. But yeah, I had him in a similar range. I'm not happy about it necessarily. He graded out almost dead last in my wide receiver model for 2026. Just analytically, his profile is pretty bad. He's coming off of a late season ACL tear, which is also not encouraging. He's very interesting from a size speed perspective. And I think, they have the more refined, technically sound receivers in their respective roles there in Indianapolis. And so if they just have him be kind of like the JMO and just run crossers constantly, he could be valuable from that perspective. But I just, unless he can truly, he's really raw right now. If he can become a lot more refined, then maybe there's higher upside there, but I just don't see a consistent role. But also I fully I have him in the same range. We're just getting into a tough spot in this draft class.
I will say if he can show any type of contested catchability in the league like he showed in college, I think this is a great spot as well for him too.
Yeah, I think that's fair too, for sure. All right, at the 2-6, I think I alluded to this with Will before the video. These are some picks that I'm not happy to be making, but just kind of based on the fact that they got drafted in the PFF mock. I feel like they deserve to go here. I'm going to go with Zachariah Branch.
Yeah.
He ends up at the 15th pick in the third round to the Atlanta Falcons. Electric playmaker with the ball in his hands. I want to give him that compliment because he deserves it. But I think there's a lot of red flags from his profile otherwise. Like I brought it up with Casey Concepcion in terms of low ADOT and poor first downs per route run. Multiply that by 10 with Zachariah Branch. Like he's a gadget guy. Like I'm almost certain that that's what he'll be, unfortunately. I think that he can be really important and stick around on a team because of his ability to impact special teams and be a return man. And so he's not going to get cut. And that'll give him an opportunity to cement a role as a receiver, but we'll have to see if he can kind of grow and develop in that role to be fantasy viable.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I had him in a similar spot. Even when it comes to competition at the wide receiver spot, it's right now Drake London in the number 2. Is he still there?
They got rid of Mooney.
That's what I mean. Mooney's gone now, and they brought in Jahan Dotson. So Jahan Dotson is the number 2 out there right now, right?
Yeah, I mean Kyle Pitts will probably be the number 2 target.
Well,
but
yeah,
in
number
terms
2
of receivers,
target.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't see Jahan Dotson at this point as a ton of competition for the number 2 spot in an offense, especially if Zachariah Branch does show signs of life and he does do well in special teams as well. I think he could earn his way onto the field pretty quickly, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and there's not really a guy with that. Like they could design some screens for him in a way that they don't have players that could really thrive in that role, right? So like it's possible for him to get on the field early, like you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, where are you taking us at the 2-7?
I'm not super happy about this pick, but I'm going with Mike Washington because he got drafted. He got drafted in the 3rd round, 5th pick of the 3rd round to the Texans, which not the most open lane to the starting spot, but still plenty of opportunity to be found out there because there's not a whole lot of talent in the number 2 spot. It'd pretty much be a competition between Mike Washington and Woody Marks in my opinion. But David Montgomery is obviously the number 1 out there, so I don't think he's giving that up anytime in the immediate future. But with that being said, he tested really well in the combine. It's just a matter of if that's going to translate over to the field or not is what we need to see. But at this point in the draft, if I could get a guy like this who has a road to being the number 2 in what is, as much as they struggled at the beginning of last season, still a pretty good offense over there, I think that there is some room for Mike Washington to be a good asset right here.
Yeah, actually, gonna be honest, I made a mistake. He was who I would have taken. I just missed him on my list here. So I'm glad that you brought him up.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, this is. I think he would supplant Woody Marks fairly easily. They wouldn't play the same role necessarily, but I think Demont is enough of a pass catcher that he would kind of take that role, and Mike Washington could be the change of pace and more explosive complement to David Montgomery. So yeah, I like that pick for sure.
Absolutely. Who we got next?
Oh boy.
Yeah. This is where it gets real gross, guys.
You guys
are gonna hate me.
There's a guy that I feel like deserves it, but I don't want. I think
Do
I'm gonna. No. I think I'm gonna call an audible and take the guy that I just prefer to take, even if maybe he doesn't deserve it. We'll see. I'm gonna go. Is he even in here? Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cole Payton.
There we
go. I
go.
alluded to earlier.
There we go.
Gets drafted to the Browns with the 6th pick in the 3rd round. He's an FCS guy. He's from North Dakota State. So level of competition is already a concern. But we've seen North Dakota State quarterbacks at least be in the NFL.
Yeah, we've seen them for sure. Yeah,
we've seen them. They exist.
They're out there.
But if you include FCS quarterbacks, he was the highest PFF graded passer in college football last year. And he also happened to run for 900 yards and 13 touchdowns on the ground at 6'3", 233 pounds. At the 208 in a draft class like this, give me the upside, man. I'll take a shot.
And he went to the Browns. So in this situation, we got no idea who's going to be quarterback. And it's probably a pretty easy road to quarterback, to be honest with you. If he goes in there and shows out in minicamp, I wouldn't even be surprised if his name popped up, multiple times this offseason.
Yeah, for sure.
And with that being said, I'm going with another team that we literally don't know who's throwing the football. So I'm picking another quarterback here, and I'm going with Garrett Nussmeier, as nasty as it is. But with this, he got mocked to the Steelers in this at the 21st pick of the third round. I'm not happy about it, guys. So don't come at me and say like, "Oh, you should have put." I'm not happy about this pick. But with that being said, it is a quarterback. This is super flex. It's an uncertain situation over there where he could have potential to impress somebody over there at least. But when it comes to competition, as of right this second, we have maybe Aaron Rodgers, which we don't know if he's coming back. And then it's going to be a Will Howard, Garrett Nussmeier competition if they don't in this hypothetical situation.
That's so gross.
It's disgusting. But someone's got to throw the ball to DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman.
Yep.
So
yep.
That's really all I got here. I'm not happy about it.
I want to make a joke. I think I'm going to make it anyway, even though we haven't drafted him yet. The guy that I think deserves it based on draft capital, but I don't want to take is Skylar Bell. He got drafted by the Steelers at the 21st pick in the second round. And you mentioned somebody has to throw the ball to DK Metcalf and to Michael Pittman. Nobody has to throw it to Skylar Bell, which is why I don't want to pick him.
His name ran through my head, and then it immediately got thrown out when I said the other two names. That's a crazy 3 names to throw out.
Maybe he'll make it at the back end of the second, but I don't think I'm going to pick him next either. But I also did want to make a mention to Nussmeier. He did suffer, I think, a core muscle injury prior to the 2025 season, which he said fully changed his throwing motion. Like, he came off of 2024 where people were projecting him to be a relatively high pick and maybe even be the QB1. And then that totally changed when he had a terrible season this past year. But he said that he struggled with his throwing motion. He was unable to use his core and couldn't turn through the same way that he had, his whole career to that point. I think he's recovered from that by now. And so I'm curious to see how big of a change that makes in his ability to play the position, just based on what we saw from him in 2024.
I mean, if that's the case and he does come back and show like some of those flashes he had from the year prior, that's a great value at that point, both in real life and in this draft right here. But
yeah,
I don't know, man. I don't know how easy it is to recover from those, to be honest with you.
We shall see. But I think, there's enough upside to make it worth taking him there for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, 210. Sorry, Skylar Bell. I'm going to continue to pass on you. I don't think the guy that I want to take is actually in the player pool on Sleeper. So I don't know who I'm going to fill him in with, but Bryce Lance, Trey Lance's brother, wide receiver out of North Dakota State. He is not in here. So I'm not sure who would be best to throw in his place since there's nobody for him. But just so the viewers know, this is supposed to be Bryce Lance out of North Dakota State. He's somebody that I didn't have really on my radar until later on in the process, but he's really burst onto the scene for me. He's the only other wide receiver in this class besides Mekhi Lemon to average over 3 yards per out run for his career. And I think he comps relatively similarly, both analytically and like on film, to Christian Watson, who also happened to go to North Dakota State. I think he's kind of that long, rangy playmaker that can do things down the field, but is also athletic enough to kind of be good in the short to intermediate in the crossing routes, similar to how we talked about with like Jameson Williams and potentially for Chris Bell. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts there. I also need to mention he went to the Vikings as a compensatory pick at the end of the third round. Competition obviously going to be tough there, but good team. I do think his skill set might be a little bit redundant with Jordan Addison. But again, we're in a tough spot of the draft. I'm shooting for the guys that I like.
I mean, it's one of those, I think you take your guys when it comes to this point in the draft. I didn't know that Bryce Lance was Trey Lance's brother, so that's just pretty cool to know. But in terms of taking a shot on him at the size and speed, all that, I'd be interested in him. It's just like you said, with this landing spot with him ending up in Minnesota, it's tough to find real estate out there. But at the same time, Jalen Naylor was able to carve out kind of a role for himself last year. But that was with Jordan Addison also being missing. But it's tough to really prescribe it. But with that being said, he's someone I would take a shot on at this point in the draft, in this kind of draft.
Yeah. All right. Where do you want to take us here?
Now, we're going back to quarterbacks, everybody.
Okay.
I'm taking Drew Aller here. Now
Yeah.
he's coming off of injury, of course. He did get hurt last season. Well, I don't remember what exactly the injury was. Was it a torn ACL or
I'm gonna look it up because I think that's actually relatively important. I'm not gonna guess. I'll look it up if you want to keep talking about him.
gotcha? But with that being said, he's somebody who, like Garrett Nussmeier, going into the season, he was touted pretty highly as a prospect, as a good prospect. But with some changes made over in Penn State and just how the season kind of opened up for him before the injury, his stocks dropped quite a bit. But with the size, speed, just sort of that profile that he had before, it's enticing to kind of take a guy like this, especially in a draft like this where he ends up with the Arizona Cardinals, who is another situation that's just very up in the air. Now, Jacoby Brissett should be coming back. I think they already signed him, but he should be the guy
Hmm.
there for a second. But with that being said, that's not the most certain situation in the world as well. We're also wondering if that's going to be indicative of things in the future or if his performance last year, he can continue that into this season as well. But if there were to be quarterback competition, this is super flex. Quarterbacks are going to go quick once people start picking quarterbacks. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that people will at least try a second time on, give him a second chance.
Yeah, I could see it. I think he's worthy of it going at the first pick in the third round to the Cardinals. To confirm, it was a broken ankle
Broken
uh,
ankle.
against Northwestern midway through the season. Um, I don't think either of us are big Drew Aller fans, but yeah, considering he lands with the Cardinals in an uncertain quarterback situation, probably worth the dart throw. And I'll do it. Skylar Bell can finally get in here.
There it is.
He'll go at the end of the second. There are some people that are really bought into Skylar Bell, and he had a great last season with UConn. It's not like I'm unaware that he was really productive for them, but his overall like analytical body of work was not very impressive to me. He actually, similarly to what I said with Chris Bell, I think he was third to last for me in this class, just like overall in terms of where he graded out in my wide receiver model. It's not where he'll end up grading out just in my rankings. He'll be a little bit higher than that, but especially if he gets, the draft capital like this, where he goes uh, kind of near the back end of the second to the Steelers, I think he's like maybe Calvin Austin 2.0. Like, I'm just not that excited about it.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, like, his athletic profile isn't the worst in the world. You know what I mean? Like, it's a pretty
Yeah.
good athletic profile. It's just he wasn't really able to put it all together on the field. So it makes you wonder if he was one of those guys who's just, really good in tights or if he's great on the football field or.
Yeah, I mean, he did eventually put it together in his fifth year at UConn against poor competition, but that's like, at that point, what are we talking about?
Yeah. Like, you like to
Um,
see a way earlier breakout than that.
especially if you're playing, against that level of competition for sure. Any honorable mentions or anybody you want to talk about before we get out of here?
I thought it was interesting, at least, that Emmett Johnson didn't go in the first 3 rounds at all. We knew that his combine wasn't great and he fell a little bit. It was kind of tough to see him fall this far.
Yeah.
But he's somebody that I maybe would have taken a shot on at the end of the second round too. I wouldn't be mad at people if they did, depending on the landing spot. Same with like Nick Singleton wasn't involved in this at all. He fell further than these rounds. Someone who got a gross landing spot, but we thought was a good player, Sam Roush.
Yeah.
But he ended up behind in the Jaguars in this mock draft. So obviously he's going to have a lot of competition there. Why am I forgetting what the tight end's name there right now?
Brenton Strange.
Brenton Strange. Strange name. That's why.
There you go.
But yeah, he's somebody that we are at least confident about, but landing spot wasn't great. So that's why he probably didn't end up in this draft. But anybody else for you?
Yeah, I had Singleton and Roush on my list also. Roush, 9.94 RAS at 267 pounds. Kind of interesting. Singleton did suffer a Jones fracture at the Senior Bowl. I think that significantly downgraded him for
Yeah,
this class.
that'll do it.
But I'll take a flyer on him if he ends up in the late third or fourth or something like that. Obviously, landing spot dependent, but I think that he would be interesting at the very least. Eric McAllister, wide receiver out of TCU. Off-field issues, I think, are kind of what's holding him back. He left Boise State with 3 games remaining in the season. I don't remember. I don't know if that was 2024 or exactly what year that was, but left the team kind of unexpectedly in the middle of the season, and then allegedly threatened a man with a gun after that. So that's kind of
Mm.
what's been the issue. But if we're looking at him in a vacuum just from his performance and statistics. He graded out as actually the 4th best wide receiver in my model for this class. So he came out a lot higher than I would have expected. Ted Hurst, another wide receiver from Georgia State that I think he's like a lot of the fantasy industry's sleeper wide receiver this year. So he's somebody that should be on your radar. Brennan Thompson, wide receiver out of Mississippi State, really small. He's 5'9", 164, but he ran a 4.26 and was pretty damn productive. And then the last 2 tight ends that I'm actually relatively interested in, Michael Trigg out of Baylor and Justin Jolly out of NC State. Trigg is one of the best tackle breakers in terms of tight ends in recent college football history, up there with Fannin, better than Laporta, Kraft, and Kittle. And Justin Jolly outproduced KC Concepcion at NC State in 2024, which I thought was at least worth mentioning.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that'll do it. Appreciate you guys as always for sticking with us till the end. If you enjoyed, please do leave a like on the video. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you think. If you disagree or agree with any of these picks and based on the fit with their landing spots, all that good stuff, let us know what you think. Hit that subscribe button if you're interested in seeing more mock drafts in the future. We'll be doing more of these. I think we'll probably be doing like some combined mock drafts with this 2026 class with either previous classes or maybe even 2027 to kind of give you an idea of where it stacks up historically. But yeah, I appreciate you guys as always, and we'll catch you in the next video. Peace.
Peace.